Hi folks, welcome to this video that has you calculate interest accruals for bonds and bond retirement. So in our question here, we have a company, Photo Finish. They've issued a face value bond, $660,000. 6% is our coupon, and we know it's a 4-year bond. Now this question is a bit different because it says interest will be paid quarterly. So in our case, if the interest is quarterly, what that means is that we're going to be paying out interest every 3 months because there are 4 quarters in a year, but each quarter is 3 months because 4 quarters times 3 months a quarter is 12 months, and there are 12 months in a year. So you have to make sure that you're careful, okay, in terms of how many months are in each quarter. Now it says the company has a year end of March 31st, and adjustments to interest payable will be made at the year end if necessary. In this case, it's necessary because the interest payment date and the year-end date are not the same. So the market rate is 4%. So because the market is paying less than our bond, we have a premium bond. So you can see when we set up the column headings here, we're setting up premium bonds. Okay? Now, the question gives you the carrying value and it gives you the unamortized premium, right? So remember that the carrying value, the face value of the bond plus the unamortized premium is going to give you the carrying value. So now they've done it for you for all of the periods. And if you have a look, what you'll notice is that because the bond was issued at the date it's dated, which is June 1st, 2013, and it's a 4-year bond, we would expect that at May the 31st, 2017, the bond would mature. Why? Because from June the 1st, 2013 to May the 1st, 2017, that's 4 years. We'd go from June the 1st, 2013, we'd go to June 1, 2014, 15, 16, and 17. So therefore, on June the 1st or May 31st, same difference, 2017, the bond would be retired. So you can see here in our question, that's what they do. They go till May the 31st, 2017. At that time, there's no unamortized premium, and you can see in the table, they've shown you that the bond is at face value. What they want you to do in this application is they want you to round all amounts to the nearest whole number when you are making your final interest payment on May the 31st. That's this row in here, the last row, and then to retire the bond on May the 31st. So now, let's begin. The first thing you have to remember is that if you look in this area here from February 28th, 2017 to May 31st, February 28th was an interest payment date. Don't forget, anytime you see period ending, these are giving you all the interest payment dates because interest is paid at the end of each period. Now, you can see that your March 31st year end is going to fall in here between February 28th and May 31st. So we have to accrue interest for 1 month, the month of March. Why? Because March 31st is the year end that immediately comes after the last interest payment date, which was February 28th. So now we have to remember that this interest expense of $66.49 represents 3 months of interest expense because 3 months or 3 months of 12 is 1 quarter, right? And it does say that interest is paid quarterly, right? So the next time interest would be paid is May 31st. But don't forget, the interest that's being paid on May 31st, 1/3 of it, or the month of March, interest for the month of March would have been accrued at the balance sheet date, which is the year end March 31st. So what it might be a good idea to do first is before we make the final interest payment on May 31st, let's have a look and see what things are like on March the 31st after we make our interest accrual entry. So I've got a little sheet here which pulls out these last two rows here of your table, and we can work with that separately. So we can see that we have cash interest that we paid, and again, you might not remember how we got that. That's going to be your face value times your coupon times and that times 3/12, because that's coupon interest that's paid every 3 months or every quarter, and there's 3 months in every quarter of the year. So we're taking our annual coupon, multiplying it by the face value, but because your coupon rate is annual, we only want it not for 12 months, but for 3 months, because there's 3 months in a quarter, divided by 12. And that's going to give us $9,900. The interest expense is given to us, so the difference between cash paid in interest and expense is the amount that you've amortized. So you can see here from the original table, if you look back here, we have $32.51 here that's unamortized at the end of February when we made our interest payment. So we've got $32.51 left, and the carrying value of the bond is this. They've given us in the table interest expense of $66.49. So the difference between interest paid, interest expense is what you've amortized in premium. So we no longer have any unamortized premium, so your bond sits at its face value at the maturity date. So now, with that in mind, just going to remove this. With that in mind, as I said before, let's consider the entry that we would have made right in here, right at March the 31st. So after February 28th, 2017, but before May 31st, 2017. What would that accrual entry have been? Well, again, if we have a look at our little table in here, we're going to be focusing in on this row. Why? Because $6,649 is interest expense that the company will book from March the 1st, 2017 to May 31st, 2017. That's 3 months of interest expense. Our year end falls in that period. So March 31st, 2017 is in here. So this interest expense of $66.49 is the interest expense from March the 1st, 2017 to May the 31st, 2017. So we want to allocate it for 1 month from March the 1st to March the 31st. So what we're going to do to calculate interest expense for that 1 month is take the expense for 3 months and multiply it by a third to get $22.16. We're also going to look at interest payable. $9,900 is interest payable for 3 months. We only want it for 1 month of 3, the month of March. So we're going to set up as interest payable because remember, at a year end, we're not paying interest. We don't pay it out until May 31st. So we set up our payable for $3,300. And the difference here would be your premium that you're amortizing. Now, some students might say, well, I had 32 or well, we'll go through that later. But in any case, we know we've got $32.51 here, and that's for 3 months. We only want it for 1 month, so that's $1,084. So now you see, to reduce the premium, to amortize it, we're going to debit it because it's natural balance to increase it as credit. So to amortize it or reduce it, we debit it. We're going to debit interest expense, and we're going to credit the interest payable. So now that we know that, I'm just going to see if I can minimize this a bit. I don't know. Now what we'll do is at May the 31st, what's our entry going to look like? Well, first of all, at May the 31st, that's an interest payment date. We know from our chart that we're going to pay out interest of $9,900. So we'd credit cash. Part of what we're paying out is what we accrued at March 31st, so we're going to debit interest payable. right? Now what we need to do is figure out numbers for interest expense and the premium on the bonds. This interest expense is what we would have recorded for 2 months of 3, the months of April and May. So these 2 months are April and May. That takes us to May 31st. So you could take 6649 times 2/3, or what some students might do is to say, well, listen, if I had 6649 to expense over 3 months, and I've already expensed 1 month of it, 2216, the difference must be what I need to expense at May 31st for the last 2 of the 3 months in the quarter. So some students might just do it like this and come up with the same answer right there. Now what you could do is you could plug this if you wanted to balance, or you could do a calculation. Again, a couple of different ways you could do it. You know that you would be amortizing premium of $32.51 for the whole 3 months. You've just amortized for 1 month $1,084. So some students might say, well, the difference is $21.67. So I can put that in there, and this will balance the entry. Some students might say, well, it's $32.51 in amortized premium for the entire 3 months of that of the period. I've already amortized, $32.51. That's for 3 months. I've already amortized 1 month, so I am going to now do it for 2 months of 3. And that will also give you $21.67. And that will balance your entry. The other thing the question asked you to do, if you recall, is they asked you to also record the retirement of the bond on May the 31st. So what happens here? Well, on May the 31st, where are we here? On May the 31st, because the bond reaches its maturity, it's at $660,000. Just get rid of this. It's at $660,000, its carrying value. That's equal to the face value. Now the bond's matured, so we pay the investors back the face value. So we debit the bond payable on May the 31st, which is the last day that the bond is available, or it's out there as an investment because it's now reached its maturity, and we're going to pay the investors back $660,000, so we credit cash. So this completes our short video on bond interest accrual.